In It Together with Lori Lynn Green talk show is a positive way to start your day. Ready for some encouragement?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm pumped. Let's let the healing begin.
Come be inspired, hear moving stories, even laugh out loud.
Can't make heads or tail of what I'm saying.
It's just incomprehensible.
Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
You'll hear real people doing real things to make a real impact.
You are heroes every day.
Hear honest, compassionate, engaging issues you care about.
You see people come together to do good in our community, and the more we come together, the more good we can do.
Listen in and get started on redesigning your life and hear what's positive in Greater Manchester. Here's your happy host, Lori Lynn Green.
Good morning, friends in Greater Manchester. Welcome to In It Together. We're so glad that you've tuned in. If you'd like to find us on the web, you can go to inittogether.net, listen live, or to previous shows, even link to our Facebook, our Twitter, our LinkedIn, and YouTube. And if you like and follow us, you'll see that we are bringing out the best in people to influence positive change in this community and beyond. Today is our Come Together community segment, or even business beat, because Deo kind of crosses lines here. And so today we get Deo Mwano. He is a consultant and a learning specialist. And so I'm sure I'm going to hear more about what his title is, but I saw a video that really moved me about branding, and I loved his approach to it, and I invited him on so that we could share it with everybody here today. So we'll be back right after this. Stay tuned.
Little Leapers and Knowledge Keepers Childcare and Preschool offers learning experiences that give kids a healthy sense of self and meaningful connections to the world around them. We teach children from a positive perspective so they learn healthy conflict resolution and develop character. Owner Jennifer Lever has over 28 years' experience in child development. She's helped children learn to read as young as 18 months. Join our happy place where we make happy happen. Located in Pinardville, bordering Bedford and Manchester. Call today at 603-491-1780.
Hi, I'm Lori Lynn Green, Advancement Strategist and owner of AlphaAdvancementStrategies.com. I've been very successful at helping people overcome stressful situations to get immediate results in their personal and professional lives. At Alpha Advancement Strategies, we provide a non-judgmental and supportive environment, empowering clients to focus more on reaching their goals. You can find us on the web at alphaadvancementstrategies.com or call us at 603-860-9260. Alpha Advancement Strategies is where you invest in yourself.
Hi, I'm Mark Major, certified coach and speaker. Join me Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for It's a Wonderful Life, all about leadership development and living a positive lifestyle. Only on In It Together with Lori Lynn Green.
Welcome back to In It Together, kicking off Come Together Community and Business Beat with Deo Mwano. Good morning, Deo.
Good morning.
So glad that you're here this morning. So I connected with you on LinkedIn, but before that, I had known you when I was working at a private school here in Manchester. You were still in school. Were you in my daughter's class or before or after?
I was a year above her.
Okay,
yeah.
so you were in school, and I remember you there, very involved in outreach and things, and so where you've gone doesn't surprise me. So tell us a little bit about your background. I want people to know, like, kind of your education and what you've accomplished so far, so that they can see the credibility of what you're talking about this morning.
Yeah, a little bit of my background. I grew up in Manchester, kind of second half of my life. I'm originally from Democratic Republic of Congo. And I went to school in Manchester, private school, public school, private school, public school. I ended up at New England College. That's where I went for my undergrad. I studied international relation and modern European. And then I went back for my MBA in strategic leadership. And I've had experiences working for the government, the federal government. So I worked for the Department of State, National Passport Center for a little bit, and then I worked in higher education with SNHU's College for America. I was there for about 4 years, and that was kind of my sandbox because I was part of a team that was designing a new learning model for adult learners, competency based learning. Online. And then after that, I transitioned into the tech world. So I worked for a technology company that focused on technology for education, so for K-12 and universities. And my role there was to consult different schools on how to design a model that will fit in the technology we're creating. And then most recently, I worked for an IoT technology security company that focuses on Internet of Things. So anything that you have within your home that connects to your Wi-Fi, we created software that gives analytics around how those devices are working. And I got involved with that also from the ground up. So it was a startup, and I learned a lot in that process of how to take an idea, bring it to life, how to identify your target audience, target customers, how to shift, how to work with developers to bring a product to life. So I have a lot of experience working for businesses and education institutions. But on top of that, a lot of my work, it's been really focused on community through nonprofits. So even when I had opportunity to work for those different institutions that I just mentioned, I was still very grounded in the community through, in the evening and finding different opportunities to continue to push things forward for underserved populations. So that's a little bit of my experience. I know that was a little bit long, but I like to paint a 360 picture.
Now, but I love this, and the reason I love it is when you're entrepreneurial like I am, you understand that you'll go through times where you're like, okay, this is my focus, and you immerse in it, and you're like, I'm loving this, but then all of a sudden you're just like, maybe we're going to move over here, and all these things don't make sense at the time, but later on, as you move forward, you realize how they all work together.
No, for sure. I definitely agree with that, and I think for me personally, it's been also about where to go to acquire certain skills. I think
Right.
as an entrepreneur, your ideas could only go so far without you actually implementing it. And part of that implementation is also having the skills to actually bring it to life. So companies that I've worked for, at times it's almost like an extension of school, but you're getting paid, right? So like you're actually going there to work, but you're also learning the skills. So, and that's the best way to do it as an entrepreneur, because you get to create.
Absolutely. And this is what I found is, the branding part to me is almost like the beginning, right? When I watched this video, you were with some students, and a lot of them had no clue about what they had in them. Everybody has, gifts and talents and skills and life experiences, but they're so underutilized because I think we kind of live in a culture where everybody's kind of told what to do so much that they forget how to think for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would totally change the whole education system. I've seen some of the education systems where kids go actual work 3 hours a day, and then a lot of it is in play. And even some of the big companies like, say, Apple or whatever, their work day is a room with whiteboards and things like that. And people don't realize that's how creativity flows, not under the pressure of you got deadlines and all this stuff all the time.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, that's a very good point. And I think for me, working with students, it's super interesting because I've worked with different demographic of students, right? So I've worked with students that are in elite schools. I've worked with students that are in districts that are struggling. I've worked with students that are right in the middle. So in terms of the personal branding side of thing, the way that my approach to it is to be able to identify what you have to offer first.
Yes.
Instead of how do I pitch myself, where most people start from that point of view, where it's like, okay, what do I need to do in order to bring attention to people to who I am so then they can consider me? Where for me, I said, hey, what do you have? Like, what are your skill sets? What are you passionate about? What can you offer? What can you do? Where are your strengths? And then as you evaluate that, then you begin to kind of package it in a way of saying, okay, this is how I differentiate myself. So with this experience, regarding the workshop that I did recently that I created the video for, it was fascinating because I was working with an elite school, a very prestigious school here in New Hampshire. And I was brought in by the faculty there to say, hey, you should do a workshop on personal branding. And to me, I thought, man, it's interesting to approach this from a high school standpoint, because usually I do this kind of work in with
It should be done
college.
younger, though.
Right.
It should be cultivated from very young. I
No,
think.
I definitely agreed. I think it's a lot easier to do it when students are in college or even when they're in entry level jobs. But for me, it's like, if you can identify your personal brand early on, then you begin to position yourself in the things that you need to do that's going to continue to build on it. And it doesn't necessarily mean once you identify what the brand is, in middle school or in high school, then you're stuck by it. No, it just means that, hey, here's how I want to be and where I want to be. And now here are the skills that I have to offer. And then how can I position myself in a way that I'm engaging in those activities? And then how do I share it out so people know
Right.
that I have those skills? So that's the basic way for me.
I love that because, as a mom, one thing I learned is I had two kids that waited to go to college. We're always taught we go to school, we work hard, then we go to college with this. And we know by the statistics that a lot of people that end up getting a degree never even use the degree that they have. Not that it's bad they go to college, but what I learned is that what we decide to do in our life is less deciding than it is discovering.
Right.
And a lot of it goes back to what you said before, identifying it first. So I like to say it's like identifying your identity. When you identify that first and you begin the discovery process of who I am, like you said, how am I made? And how am I wired? And
what do I care about?
Yeah,
what am I passionate about? What am I
huge.
thinking about? Where am I drawn to? Where, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What are the stuff that are exciting me? Because that's essentially who you are at that moment,
Right.
or in
and,
that
and we
season.
evolve,
Right.
but still, though, I see I have a good friend whose son loves working on cars and stuff. But even when he was very young, he wanted to take apart like the lawnmower and things. So I think that it shows up very young. Where if you pay attention, I know as a parent, I didn't try to make my kids be something. I tried to discover who they were and help them find opportunities so they could be that. And they've been able to, grab life in the area. They love what they do. I mean, nothing worse than going into a position or a career that you don't like doing.
Right.
And so many people are in that situation. So I like to, as a coach, reevaluate that with people. So, just like you said, what am I passionate about? I do like a whiteboard session where it's like you begin to say, remember the earliest time, when you were a kid, what did you love to do? Or you felt alive, that you could do it all day long and it got you up early in the morning and wanted you to stay up late at night. And it starts young, and it may not be the exact same thing, but it's kind of those skills begin to emerge, or those preferences or passions kind of emerge, right?
No, I definitely agree. I think one of the biggest thing around my work when I focus on personal branding, it's about identity and ownership. So
I love it.
One is being able to identify it and how it aligns with you, and then two is definitely the ownership. So a lot of times, we tend to stay around our intention a lot, so what we think in our head and how we see something.
Yep.
But sometimes it doesn't translate into ownership. So ownership, it's really about, okay, how do I translate my intention into real action and real life experiences? So the ownership piece is actually saying, hey, I actually care about this, and this is who I am, and then what do I do with it? What are the skills do I already have that aligns with what I care about and what I'm passionate?
Yep.
And then what are the skills do I need to still develop in order to strengthen my ability to actually do what I want to do? And I feel like once you've aligned with that, then you can actually start doing, right? And you're doing not just in the sense of like perfection, right? Like you're doing knowing that, hey, I might make mistakes, it might not be perfect, but at least I'm applying myself. And then once you start creating, that's when the experience actually comes to life. That's when you can actually say, oh, all right, this is what I was able to create, or this is what my experience was like. And I think that's what makes it authentic around your personal brand. So now it's less about creating the perfect shot or the perfect picture or the perfect post. Now it's about just elevating what you're already doing, because it's a reflection of what you're applying yourself to.
Yeah.
And that's authentic. And I think a lot of people, and it's easier for people to see that, like, hey, that's authentically what that person is doing, is because that's what they do, instead of, oh, I don't really know if that person can really do that. I know they're talking about it. I know they're posting about it. Can they really do that?
Yeah.
So when you start from that standpoint of actually applying yourself around what you care about, identifying the gaps, but also identifying where the strengths are, and then you start doing, then that becomes visible. So that's your brand. That's who you are.
Right. I always say, practice makes progress. Get started on what you know, and what you don't know will be apparent when you kind of make those mistakes. But like, I love that you said not being perfect, because we really begin to grow into who we are so that we can do what we're meant to do. And so that takes that process, but it's ever learning, ever growing.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I think it's different. So I think it's different when you're like, middle school, high school, college, than when you're maybe in your, mid-career, right? Like you're already working for someone else.
Or on top of the world,
right,
like us.
Right. I think for the older folks, meaning like, if you're later on within your career, I think it's important to have your own sandbox. So that's my model.
Explain what you mean having your
You
own.
have to have your own sandbox. You have to have an area where you can play an experiment that you have ownership over. So if you work a 9 to 5, great, awesome. But sometimes the 9 to 5 restricts what you can actually do. So you're not going to fully tap into all your skills because, you might be put in the bubble, right? Like you might just focus on that one area or this project or that project. But when you have your own sandbox, that means you've created a space where you're continuing to push who you are and what you care about outside of your 9 to 5 job in order to continue to grow. So now you also have the freedom to experiment without any repercussion coming back from someone else saying, hey, you didn't do it the right way. Oh, you didn't do this. You didn't do that. Now you have a space where you can actually experiment. And then through that experimentation is when you can start defining, all right, I'm actually really good at this, or I'm not, I don't know about this, or I don't know, who else can I collaborate with? Where else can I go?
Yeah, it's like testing, right? You have to test things out. And my whiteboard says "Welcome to my playground" right on the top of it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
It is awesome. So for some people, now we're talking about this as far as what your life is going to be like. So we're not necessarily saying just how you're going to pick your career. This is your life. You may have, like Deo said, a 9 to 5 job where one aspect of your skills is used, but like Deo and me, we're very versatile. Like we still want to be maybe volunteering or be part of the community, or there's other ways to use your gifts, and it doesn't always mean making money.
Exactly. Right, that's a big thing right there, and I think for me that was developed early on based on a lot of kind of community outreach and mission trips that I was involved with early on, where I knew for sure, regardless of what I do, I have to be civically engaged in helping others. So that became part of my brand. That regardless of getting paid or not, if there's something that I care about, if there's a topic or a concern or a population, I have to make sure that I am engaging in helping. So I think a lot of times people underestimate the stuff that they do through volunteering or through their church or whatever nonprofits that they're involved with. That's also part of your brand. That sometimes might even differentiate you between you and someone else that does similar work because of the way that your approach to it. So I think that, you can't just think of personal brand regarding what brings you money and what will make you money. That's actually the wrong way
Right.
of approaching
Absolutely.
it. It's really more about energizing who you are internally.
I love
So
that.
meaning what you feel, what you care about, what you think about. And then, yeah, there might be opportunities where you do make money through your personal brand. But I think from a holistic standpoint, you also have to think about what's beyond me. You know,
Absolutely.
part of my personal brand, what about my personal brand that the reward does not come back to me directly, that it's actually going to other people.
Right.
And I think that's the most selfless way to approach it at times. And it's also the most freedom, because now you know that, hey, it's not about me. You know, this particular thing, it's not about me. It's about giving back to others. And I actually find a lot of freedom through that. And I feel like holistically, I approach it from a 360 point of view, where that's as important than some of the other stuff that some people might look at and be like, oh, that's the exciting part about Deo's work. To me, it's like the other stuff that benefits others sometimes are the stuff that keeps me going.
I love that. You talk about finding that thing that energizes you internally, and I think that's the key. I think the internal, when we work on the internal, the external becomes obvious and easier to do, but I feel like that's key. I think a lot of people minimize the value of volunteering, being part of, giving your life to help another's life, using your gifts and skills for work and helping others. We actually have to take a really brief break. So we're going to take a brief break. Please stay tuned and support those who support us, and we can stay on air. We'll be back right after this.
Mark Major knows that great coaches need constant training to be effective. As a certified coach, teacher, and speaker with the John Maxwell team, Mark can help you identify and activate your personal and professional goals. If you seek to do more and be more, look up Mark on the web at johnmaxwellgroup.com/MARC major or call 603-674-6818. Mark Major, growing leaders and adding value.
Hi, this is Lori Lynn Green, Advancement Strategist and Coach Trainer at alphaadvancementstrategies.com. Join me Mondays at 9 a.m. where I'll talk about ways to help keep you moving forward in life. Only on In It Together with Lori Lynn Green.
Hi, I'm Jen Lever, anchor of the Recovery Now segments. Join me Tuesdays at 9 a.m. where I offer support to families struggling with addiction. Hear personal stories, learn the signs of addiction, and get help for your loved ones. Only on In It Together with Lori Lynn Green.
Welcome back to In It Together, in the midst of a conversation with Deo Mwano and on branding, and I'm kind of excited about today's show, probably because I don't get to talk to a lot of creative people that often. So what we were talking about during the break, though, was how fulfilling it is to be inspiring to people, where you're talking to them and all of a sudden you see like this light bulb come on. And it's like they've never considered that, because people don't realize they live in a box a lot of times. And it's almost as if people need permission to get out.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. Yeah, I find that time to time where it's like there's a lot of the way that people approach their life sometimes. It's on autopilot, right? So like the requirements and different stuff that they have to do on a daily basis. And then it just becomes autopilot. I got to do this. I got to do that. And there's less time that's put aside for them to actually reflect on how they feel and what's going on, what's happening. So when they get those moments where they get that self-actualization, like, oh, snap, like this is what I really do. It's like, oh my gosh, it's such a big deal. And it's like, you can do that at any time. You just got to create the space to make sure that you're reflecting on where things are and where things are going in order for you to be in tune on, how far off are you based on how you feel internally and what you're actually doing on a daily basis.
I love what you're saying here. So many people listen to this. I don't want to go over it I don't want to go too fast. I just want to kind of like stop at this point of creating space. You said people are going through their daily grind, and they're like, they feel like if they're not moving that nothing's happening.
Right.
But really, some of the best things that can happen in you first. And that's through meditation, through thinking about, what you want. I'll tell you, if you ask a lot of people the first question, what do you want? I get a lot of, well, I like chocolate.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like most people don't even know what does what I want have to do with me trying to make a living. And on Mondays, I talk about making a life, not making a living. And that includes so many different areas of our life. We're so diverse in ourselves. And so many people are just like so very narrow. It's working home, working home, working home. They don't enjoy anything. They don't spend time with family. They don't take care of their health. They're not even dealing with their financial situation. There's all these things that play a part. But you said create space.
Yeah, you have to be intentional in creating space for you to be able to reflect on what you're doing, where you're going, how you feel. If you don't do that, then you continue to operate in autopilot mode. But the interesting part of that is even when you're operating in autopilot mode, you're the one who has informed yourself to engage on the stuff that you're engaging. So you are still in control, but you're not in control because you're not creating the space to reflect on what's happening. So something that I've learned when I was working at the university and helping to develop a coaching model for adult learners are it's called drivers. So what are the drivers? We all have drivers that influence what we do on a daily basis. It influences our decision. You have to be able to start really reflecting and identifying what are those drivers, because those drivers are kind of the trigger points. Those are the things that ignites you to do certain stuff. The more you become aware of those drivers, the better you will be in control in figuring out, okay, where do I need to shift? Is this really a priority? If it's not a priority, then why is it driving me to do this? And when I was working with adult learners, it became a very very important tool that I use to help people figure out how they're going to create, the time to do the work that they're saying that they want to do. So we would talk about drivers a lot. So sometimes it was family, sometimes it was manager and boss, sometimes it was a friend, or sometimes it was parents, right? So there's all these different requirements that are causing us to do certain stuff. And, at the end of the day, I used to ask my students, so what does that look like? You signed up to be in this program for this. Right now, there's other stuff that's taking you away from what you want to do. How do you create the space to make this thing that you said you were going to do as important as other stuff? So when the time that you give within a 24-hour also considers that. So the drivers are very, very, very important. We don't want to underestimate the driver, and we don't want to continue to be on autopilot without knowing what are the things that are actually driving our decisions and our action on a daily basis.
So true. Working with people, it comes down to helping them identify the challenges. Where are they wasting time and energy where it doesn't serve where they're going?
Exactly. Right.
And so you were talking about, I love the words you use, trigger points, things that ignite you. If you're living a life where you're not on fire for something, then it's probably time to create space and get quiet and begin to write this down. This happened to me a few years ago where I was like, I really felt like I was aimless and didn't know where I was going and what I was doing. I came to an end of a season in my life, and because we have different seasons in life, right?
Exactly, right.
And so I was like, what do I want to do? And after a lot of patience, and then ultimately just the rubber hit the road. The rubber met the road where it's like, I got to do something. This is not working for me anymore. And I had to get real. And sometimes we don't, until we're back against the wall, sometimes we don't get real about what we want. And then I began to write down some things that I thought I wanted. The first one was something I kind of wanted. The second thing was something I was like, yeah, that's what people would expect me to write. By the third one I wrote, it was something that really mattered to me. And I wrote it down, and there was a connection there. And I think that's what we're looking for, right? What are you connecting with? And when you do that, that's when you need to have permission to say, it's okay to start walking in that direction. So One of the things that I think people have a hard time with is change, right?
Right.
I've been in this career for several years now. I'm supposed to go back to school or change the career that I'm in or whatever, and it seems so big and scary because we get so settled into a certain type of lifestyle. And sometimes it goes back to, again, people need permission. They need to bounce that off of somebody like you or me or whatever on, this is what I'm processing, for someone to say, then go for it. You can do this. All of your skills and everything points in this direction. They just need an affirmation for that. And
no, for sure. No, I definitely agree with you on that. And I think if we kind of go back to the whole, being authentic to who you are, and then who you are is your personal brand, it goes back to being able to kind of, decide, when it is time to take that, to make that move, what are the things that are going to be critical, and then sometimes expectation plays such a big influence around that. Is the expectation coming from you, or is the expectation coming from others? And if it is coming from others, what are the key parts of that, the pressure that's being put that's holding you back? Or what are the key parts of the pressure that's making you want to make the change and making the move happen? And then you got to also ask yourself too, it's like, what's my, intrinsic reward? What's my internal reward? What would this look like? What's the risk? But the big thing is to really be able to be in tune with who you are, and you got to find a way to start creating. So you might not have all the time, but at least you can be realistic, right? Like if you only have an hour or 30 minutes a day to give towards that idea, you got to start somewhere. And the more you start playing with it, the more you start realizing, okay, maybe I can shift here a little bit. Maybe I can shift there a little bit.
And I think people have this all or nothing mindset, and I think that's wrong. Okay, but I love that you said that, what are the risks? Okay, this is really what we're talking about, right? So once we discover who we are, we have our identity. What you said here was that our identity is our brand, is our personal brand. Okay, who you are is your personal brand. What are the risks for the changes that you have to take? Now, depending on who you are and your circumstances, obviously, if you're, I tell young mothers a lot that want to be home with their kids and whatnot, don't rush it. I was home with my kids, and now I'm, people say, well, I got to do the career and the family and all this stuff. Like, don't do all that. Don't kill yourself. So many people try to do too much at one time. I've been able to do everything I've ever wanted and more, just not all at once.
Right.
Okay, so you let it evolve, know where you are, and stay there. As far as like parenting, just be the best parent. Wherever you are, be there, right? So change can be fast or gradual, depending on those circumstances. And this is why coaching and consulting can be very valuable for someone to say, okay, where am I? What are my priorities, right? What's most important to me right now? Where would I like to go? And how do I bridge that and begin to start stepping out in this without it hurting what I already have going on?
Right. No, exactly. And I think, so for me, there's two sides of it, right? I think I'm going to go back to that, the skill gap as a big thing, or identifying your skills around that particular thing that you want to do. But then the other side of it is it's the emotional commitment, because every decision that we make, there's an emotional side to it. So we have to try to figure out, okay, what's my emotional commitment to this on both ends? Emotional commitment when you do experience success, emotional commitment when you're experiencing challenges throughout that process of creating.
Yeah.
Because most people, the discomfort of figuring things out and not really it being perfect, and some people,
change can be challenging.
Right, those are the stuff that pulls them away from actually pursuing what they want to do, because they're like, well, what happens if someone doesn't like it, or what happens if it's not perfect? Or so it's like you got to be able to figure out, okay, how do I deal with the different types of emotion that's going to happen during this experience, and then how am I going to tackle this so when it happens, it doesn't deter you away from the commitment that you've made. And I think the big thing for me is, like, I'm a big believer of playfulness. Like, I just actually had a post today on LinkedIn regarding kind of the mindset, how I ground myself through difficult times. Sometimes I kind of go back to my childlike perspective. You know, when I was a kid, I just felt very free. Like I just tried a bunch of stuff, and there was always just an ease to life. And I think the older we get, like we tend to lose that playfulness. And as a creator, when you're being authentic around a problem that you're trying to solve or something that you're creating, that playfulness is so important. Yeah, because the playfulness normalizes the experience, right? It's like if you're crafting and you're repurposing a chair, and in the process of it, it's not coming out the way you want to. There's two sides of it, right? Some people might say, "Oh, this is not working. I'm not good enough." And
you want to enjoy the journey, not endure it,
right? And some people might just be like, "Oh man, I definitely didn't paint it the right way, but I can switch it up and change it." You know what I mean? I think when you're doing it through your own way, and there's no one else lingering over you, as a boss or a manager or something. It's okay to be playful. Do it your way. Yeah, it's okay to just...
It's okay. There's more than one way to skin a cat, right?
Right. Oh. But you never want to compromise. That's where the balance comes in terms of your skill set. There's a balance, though. Some people feel like playfulness means that,
goof off.
Right. I don't have to be super careful in terms of, what the end product looks like. But I do think that it's important to make sure that when you identify that you have some skill gaps, meaning you still need to develop and grow in certain areas around that particular thing you want to do, you definitely want to carve out time to continue to learn. Luckily, we live in the information age where you can go on YouTube, or there's all this how-to. Or maybe you can find a class, right? You can find a course somewhere online, or maybe your local community college or whatever it is, so you can continue to build on the skills that you need. So you can build your craft, because some of us, we stay away from doing what we want to do sometimes because we don't want to invest around the skill building, because we have to also carve time to build our skills.
Absolutely. We are unfortunately out of time, but I really appreciate you coming in, Deo. This has been inspiring. Probably would love to have you back sometime. We can talk about that another time. But so I'm going to give you, a couple minutes of your close out. Tell people what you'd like them to know about you or how to connect with you, and then we can close it out.
For sure. Thank you for inviting me. I had a lot of fun. Yeah. Time goes by so fast when you're having a great conversation. Deo Mwano, you can find me on my website, deomwano.com. I live here in Manchester, and I work with organizations from all over different places. And for my closing, I think one of the things that I would just leave you guys out with, it's definitely be in tune with who you are. If you don't know who you are, I think it's important to create the space and time to reflect and identify who you are by what you care about, what are the internal drivers, and then create the space to just create. Just go and just do, get messy, play around, just try things out. And that's where you learn the most. Most of us, we want to craft stuff. We want to strategize. We want to write stuff down. We want to think through stuff. You got to move away from the idea and move to the practice, because the practice is where everything is. So I appreciate you guys being able to listen to me, and I had a great time being here on the show. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deo. That concludes today's Come Together segment. And if you want to join me Monday, yours truly will be here for the good life, to help you to face the challenges in your life, but also to inspire, encourage, and motivate you to action like Deo was talking about today. All right, so that's it. Have a blessed weekend. Remember, we are in it together.